What's up, everybody? Welcome back to our Phases of Kratom Addiction Recovery series. So, last week we talked about what the quitting process looks like in different ways that you can do that. And this week we're going to go into the pink cloud. What's it all about? What does it feel like? My experience with it, what you can possibly expect with it, and stuff like that. So, okay, the pink cloud syndrome is what it's kind of called, and it's also just like a concept in sobriety. Originally came from AA's literature, where it talks about in, I think that it's the 12 steps and 12 traditions book, that after quitting, I think it's around the second step or something, after quitting alcohol, there is a time in sobriety where you feel awesome. And the concept that came from AA has now gone across the board in pretty much all recovery, because it's something that we all experience pretty much. Maybe some people don't, but I experienced it. A lot of other addicts experience it that I've been in touch with. And so we find that it kind of spans over like many addictions. And so basically, like, what's the pink cloud all about? What is it? What does it feel like? What does it look like in our brains? That kind of thing. It is the time after we quit a substance where we're feeling awesome. Why does this happen on a neurochemical level? I haven't researched this thoroughly, but I theorize that there's something that's happening in our brains and our bodies when we finally quit the substance that we've been addicted to for a long time, where in my experience, which I'll get into in a moment, but like just to use it to explain this, neurochemistry aspect, in my experience, like I felt this like mental and physical relief from quitting kratom. The burden that my addiction had been putting on my mind and body was really heavy. So when I quit, I found that like after I got through the acute withdrawals, that there was like this sense of relief. And so I think that that's part of what's going on in our brains and our bodies when we quit. I think also, the pink cloud comes after we go through our acute withdrawal process. And so it may be as well that like, we're through the hardcore withdrawals and it's like this like sense of like accomplishment and relief that we start to feel. And I'm not sure exactly what's going on with our brain chemistry, but there is definitely a lot of changes. We often feel happy, elated almost, like it's like bordering on euphoria, where like, to feel sobriety again for the first time in, God knows how long, because some of us are in our addictions for a really long time, to feel that is like very enjoyable for a lot of us. It's this time of great optimism where we feel like, okay, we're done with this addiction, we're over it, we're never going back. There isn't anything that is going on in the long-term recovery aspects that has come yet. So we're not dealing with really any negative, things like depression, anxiety, anhedonia. There are, typically no cravings when we're in the pink cloud time. So it's really this like awesome time, to be honest. And I've now counseled a lot of people who are getting off of kratom and other addictions. And I've recognized and I've talked to them about this time that like, you get off of whatever substance you're on, and then you're in this space where you are on top of the world. And a lot of times you feel like it's going to last forever. I know for me, I thought that it was going to last forever. I actually have this memory of, I made a comment actually on a YouTube video about somebody talking about their quitting kratom experience. And I remember writing this comment that like, yeah, I just quit 2 weeks ago. Like, I'm never going back. Like, things are great, this, that, and the other. And the person actually responded like, oh, the pink cloud, have fun while it lasts. And I remember feeling like, oh man, like, don't burst my bubble over here. But it was true. It did not last forever. This happens, the pink cloud phase, it will set in different times, and it'll last for different lengths of time for different people. For me, it came right after my acute withdrawal phase lifted. So I wasn't going through any withdrawal stuff. I probably was having trouble sleeping, but for me, it was around the 2 to 3 week mark after I actually quit. And then it lasted for maybe 2 to 3 weeks at most for me. I've heard that for some people, with quitting drinking, that it can last longer. I actually watched a video just recently about somebody sharing their pink cloud experience that set in about 2 months after they quit drinking, and it actually lasted for another 2 to 3 months. So I think it depends on the substance too. But with Kratom in particular, there's a lot that's going on in our brain chemistry with any addiction, but with Kratom especially, where, there's a lot of stuff that's going on with our brain chemicals re-regulating after our addiction. So that will affect the length of time that it lasts for, this pink cloud phase, and then also when it sets in. So what does this actually look like? I just kind of, said some general things, but I'll share my experience now with you that, like I just said, it set in 2 to 3 weeks after my final quit. And I had gotten through my acute withdrawals, and it set in where it was like this new high, to be honest with you. Like, being sober was this new high, sober from Kratom. And it felt like I was on top of the world. It felt like I had just climbed this huge mountain by quitting Kratom and going through these horrible withdrawals. And I was just standing on the top of the mountain, looking around. It was awesome. I felt so happy. I felt pretty much euphoric, obviously not from a drug, but just the most wonderful, elated feeling of okay, I'm finally free. And that's what I focused on a lot too when I was in my pink cloud phase, was I was just so stoked to be out of that addiction. And it felt so good to have accomplished actually getting off of it, because I was in this long taper process that lasted a year. And so I think it was just the combination of my brain and my body finally being free from, the drain of taking the Kratom every day, the ups and the downs of the actual Kratom effects when I would dose. And so I was super stoked. Yes, there were still some residual things, I wasn't sleeping well. It took me a while to regulate into a new schedule after my final withdrawals, but it was awesome, man. And just like that comment said, when I commented on that YouTube video, and then the person responded that enjoy it, it doesn't last forever. That's what I soon found out, was that this did not last forever. And it, like I was saying a moment ago, it lasted about 2 or 3 weeks. And that was enough time where it was a little bit of a reward after getting off of the Kratom. It gave me this sense of deep accomplishment, and it gave me this joy that I hadn't felt in so long, from actually, putting in the work for something and accomplishing it rather than just seeking joy from Kratom. So how did it end? As things went into that second or third week of the pink cloud, I noticed that my mental state started to shift a little bit. It wasn't this instantaneous where all of a sudden I'm bummed out, but it started to kind of settle into this new more of a flat, meaningless sort of feeling. And it really was the anhedonia setting in. We're going to get into next week what PAWS, which is post-acute withdrawal syndrome for short, and it's basically like long-term recovery, what that looks like. But at the end of the pink cloud, when I started to shift into, getting into the PAWS stuff and the long recovery stuff, that's where it shifted, where I started to notice the onset of things like anhedonia, things like, some lower moods and depression and anxiety type of stuff starting to set in. And then I went into the next phase of my recovery process, which is, like we were just saying, the long-term recovery process. So I wanted to share my experience because it can give you a little insight into what you're going through, hopefully. And I say with pretty much all of these videos that this was my experience. It could be completely different from you. Maybe you won't experience the pink cloud phase. Maybe it will last a lot longer for you and you won't have that shift into the post-acute withdrawal stuff. So just because, I went through this doesn't mean that you're going to go through exactly the same thing. But I think that this is important to talk about when we get into Kratom recovery, because it's something that a lot of us experience. And I think if we understand it more, we're going to have better insight into our situations and how we can navigate them. So I encourage you to share, if you've gone through the pink cloud phase, what that was like for you. Or, if you even haven't even quit yet and you're starting to get concerned about different aspects of the quitting process, you're welcome to share what you're thinking in the comments section below. And we have a really cool community that's forming here that have either quit Kratom or that are quitting it right now, and that through sharing our experiences and uplifting each other, we can encourage one another to go through this process as well. So feel free to share below. And I will see you next week when we get into long-term Kratom recovery and what that phase looks like, what post-acute withdrawal syndrome is all about, and how we can navigate that successfully. So I will see you then. Bye.